Good evening, one and all. Today we are going to see about the self-theory of Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers is an American psychologist. He was born in the year 1902 and he died in 1987. He is an old student of Columbia University. He is known for his self-theory and he dealt with the college students with adjustments problems. According to him, person is important. He says, nothing in the world is bigger than the people. There are three components according to him. Self-concept includes self-worth, self-image, and ideal self. What is self-worth? Self-worth is nothing but what we think of our own selves. So, it is mostly developed in early childhood where we interact with our father and mother and how we are formed during that stage. Self-image is how we see our own self. Example, are we comfortable with our physical structure? How we perceive our own self as a good or a beautiful person? Self-image has an effect on how a person thinks, feels, and behaves in this world. Ideal self is a person who thinks how he or she would like to be. So it consists of goals, ambitions in life, how dynamic. So it keeps changing what we think of ourselves. When we were youth, when we were students is different. In the late 20s, in the late 40s, it keeps changing. So ideal self is what we like to achieve in life. So according to Carl Rogers, person-centered therapy and its perspectives is mainly in terms of self-concept or the beliefs about our own self, our own behavior, nature, and qualities, and the difference between ourself and the actual experience. So an important tool, according to him, in human self-actualization is the development of our own image or the self-concept. So he refers in two phases. One is positive and negative. How we are optimistic, constructive, which come under positive self-concept, and how we are pessimist and destructive come under negative. So there are two kinds of selves. One is the ideal self and the real self. So ideal self is based on how we want to be. What is our dream, our hope, how we see ourselves, how we would like to see ourselves. Real self is the actual real realities in life, the actual experiences, what is happening, what we are facing, how we see ourselves. See, these three images depict it very clearly. The bitten apple is bitten, but we see it in the mirror. We like to see an apple full. So the gap between the ideal and the real self is small. That means there is a good self-esteem. If the gap between the ideal self and the real self is big, it shows that there is a poor self-esteem. So third picture, a fat person who wants to be slim and thin must take efforts to become thin. Instead of that, he may not every time dream and then keep himself, yes, I am going to become thin, I am thin, like no. So there is a gap between what he is and what he wants to be. Carl Rogers, in his person-centered perspective, considers people as they are always good. As for a plant to grow, water, sun, and nutrients are needed. He says for a person, genuineness, acceptance, and sympathy are needed. So these are the three conditions he put that facilitates growth in a person's life. We see in detail genuineness, which includes being open with our own feelings. Instead of becoming a person with a mask over his face, the person must be transparent and self-disclosing. It's just being honest. Acceptance is an attitude regardless of the circumstances. It is accepting our own self and others completely. It can be divided into conditional positive regard, unconditional positive regard. So both are positive, but one is conditional and the other one is unconditional. So under conditional positive regard, we receive if a certain behavior is expected or fulfilled. In unconditional positive regard, warmth and acceptance and love and experience regardless of our own behavior. Example, Vijay's parents would give him freedom that if he wants to become a maths teacher or a computer teacher or an elementary school teacher, he is free to choose. So that is unconditional positive regard. In the conditional positive regard, Ravi's parents already had put in his mind that he must become a doctor. So Ravi develops a fear within him. If he doesn't become a doctor, he would lose his parents. So this is conditional positive regard. Third is empathy. It's listening, sharing, understanding, and mirroring feelings and reflecting their meanings while we deal with others. So how we feel, how we give importance to the other comes under empathy. So when we evaluate humanistic perspectives, so it has contributed the concept of self-perception, which is the key to personality, consider the positive aspects of human nature and emphasize conscious experience. And this theory is also criticized that it is too optimistic about human nature, promotes self-love and narcissism. Example is, people are good. Why is there evil in this world? A big question comes. So when people are good, all that happens in the world must also be good. For Roger, a person who is in the process of self-actualizing, actively exploring potentials and abilities and experiencing a match between real and ideal self, is a fully functioning person.
Always are.